Wandavision is bad. Season 1, Episode 9. Oh, I'm sure you're gonna see plenty of videos today and in the next week or so talking about how this TV series is the best ever, but it's just not true. And it's really unfortunate because there are some genuinely good things in the show, but even during this episode, I repeatedly kept saying to myself, wow, why are they doing that? That's so stupid, it doesn't make any sense when certain things were happening. Because sadly, Disney is gonna be Disney, and that means the bad outweighs the good. This series is 9 episodes long, but the amount of actual content is probably maybe 5 or 6 episodes. The rest is just useless filler in order to stretch the number of episodes to keep people subscribed to Disney+. And unfortunately, because oftentimes scenes get dragged on for way longer than they should, the skip forward button is far more useful than it ever should have to be.
Get over there!
Another obvious and glaring problem is the nauseating woke garbage. I've heard other people referring to Phase 4 of Marvel called the MCU because Disney has proclaimed that moving forward, the only characters that are going to have any significance are going to be the female characters. Now imagine just for a second the screeching, endless outrage on social media if they had instead said, well, you know, the only characters that are going to be significant are going to be the men. Yeah, it's blatant sexism, but it's treated like it's okay because the targets are men and not women.
We live in a society.
But then again, if the woke weirdos didn't have double standards, they wouldn't have any standards at all. This episode begins immediately where the previous left off. Wanda is trying to attack Agatha, but Agatha is able to absorb the magic just like she did with the other witches, and then she claims that this is kind of her thing. It's her special power to absorb the magic of others. So instead, Wanda just lifts up a car and slams it into Agatha, which knocks her into a building. Which I have to admit is actually kind of clever, and it was a little funny when I saw it. But suddenly, White Vision arrives, and Wanda is a little confused. Side note, I just realized that Vision is essentially going through the Michael Jackson treatment. After all, they both started with a bit of color, and then they end up with pasty white skin. Whatever. Okay, moving on. Wanda confused by the new look of Vision, and suddenly even more confused when White Vision tries to kill her. This is one of those moments where I stop to say, wow, this is really dumb.
Let me explain. No, there is too much. Let me sum up.
Vision's body is made of vibranium, and he has super strength. Considering that this is also a surprise attack, he would have been able to pop Wanda's head in less than a second. The show even includes the sound effects of bones cracking, which means that Vision must be crushing her skull, and yet Wanda doesn't suffer any actual injury now or for the rest of the episode. As soon as he begins applying pressure to Wanda's head, it should have just collapsed.
Got better.
There are going to be several other points in this episode where the show is trying to do very specific things because they want to have a very specific payoff, but it just turns out to be dumb, and this is one of them. But after surviving for way longer than she should have, the other Vision arrives and saves the day. Both of the Visions start fighting, and Wanda flies off to chase Agatha, which is new, I guess. I mean, Wanda always had the ability to hover in the air and even float a little bit, but I guess she got an upgrade because now she can just fly like Superman. Meanwhile, Rambo is being held captive by the fake Quicksilver, who's under the control of Agatha. He must have been a normal person in the town under the control of Wanda, and then Agatha took him over and gave him some powers and made him pretend like he was her long-lost brother. His real name is Ralph, by the way. But that leads into another one of these really stupid moments that just made me go, wait, what? That's dumb. Because how is this character able to move at super speed? One of the twins is able to also move at super speed because both twins are a creation of Wanda and an extension of her power. But this fake Quicksilver was just a normal guy in the town that Agatha kind of took over and repurposed in order to pretend to be Wanda's long-lost brother. Agatha is not powerful enough to grant super speed to this guy. That is a reality warping thing that she doesn't have access to. That's the whole purpose for her trying to take Wanda's powers, because Agatha can't do that sort of thing. So how is this guy moving at super speed when Agatha doesn't have the ability to give him that power? And oh sure, she probably could have made someone move a little bit faster for a short amount of time, but not to the extent of this, and the near instantaneous, almost time-stopping travel that Quicksilver currently has. Agatha doesn't have that power. This is just dumb.
Mistakes were made, and I will find out who's responsible.
Though, on the plus side of this scene, we do get to see that arrogant, man-hating piece of garbage Rambo get knocked across the room, so I would have to say that this is probably one of the better scenes in the episode. But don't worry, it gets worse, because now we get to find out what someone else in the diversity squad has been up to. Jimmy has now arrived at the new sword base and is in custody. While he's talking to the director, there's a phone ringing on the desk in clear view of every single person in the entire room. Somehow, Jimmy walks over and in one of the most absurd, clumsy ways possible, grabs the phone and hides it in his pants.
Seems fairly obvious.
There is absolutely no way that the rest of the people in the room don't notice this. Even with the director in front of him, Jimmy has two guards that are watching him from behind. It would be absolutely impossible for them to not see what he's doing. Although, speaking of impossible, this scene does get even more stupid. You can see here that when Jimmy is being brought in by the two guards, black guy on the left and white guy on the right. This is the exact scene right here from the show. You can see that the white guy is immediately behind Jimmy, and then it cuts to a view of the director. Then we see Jimmy very obviously picking up the phone, and the next cut shows a more zoomed out view of the area, but the white guard has been erased from existence.
And it's gone.
Which I'm sure is what all the woke weirdos would like to see. But it's not just a case of him standing a little off to the side, so maybe he's not in view of camera. Even as the scene goes on, the white guard character is simply gone. He just doesn't exist anymore. Now, in fairness, these sorts of little mistakes do happen all the time. No production is perfect, and this show is no exception. But the thing that is unacceptable in this scene is how incredibly and unbelievably stupid it is that Jimmy is able to very clumsily grab the phone in front of everyone and no one notices. That is not a production mistake. That is bad writing.
Treatment of the story as anything remotely approaching realistic is insanity.
I suppose I should mention the actual dialogue from the scene, and it's just as dumb as everything else. Jimmy accuses director of committing some kind of a crime and then trying to cover it up. The funny thing is, he never really mentions exactly what the crime is, and even throughout the rest of the episode, some people talk about the director going to jail, but again, no one really mentions what his actual crime is. And the thing is, him committing a crime or trying to cover up makes absolutely no sense anyways, because what exactly is he trying to cover up? He had lawful control over the operation and everything going on in the town. He also had lawful control over the remains of Vision and what to do with it. There is nothing for him to cover up because he has done nothing wrong.
I knew it. I'm surrounded by assholes.
But the director acts as if it doesn't matter because White Vision will kill Wanda and the other Vision, and then everyone will just think that the White Vision was the original or something. I guess it's a little convoluted. The show is trying so unbelievably hard to make this white guy the villain, and it just doesn't work in any way whatsoever because he hasn't done anything wrong. The only thing bad about the character is that apparently he's a white male in authority, and that can't be allowed.
You're a man when I tell you you're a man.
But don't worry, it gets worse, because then Jimmy is thrown into a large storage building, and all of the guards and other sword personnel just walk away and leave him unattended.
Are you serious?
Where Jimmy happens to have a safety pin, and he uses it to escape the handcuffs, and then he uses the phone to call for help. Wanda and Agatha are now in the middle of the town, and Agatha gives us a monologue of what the Scarlet Witch actually means. She claims that there's an entire chapter dedicated to the Scarlet Witch in the book called The Darkhold. It's unlikely that they're going to use the actual comic book version of the book, so just suffice it to say that it's a book of forbidden magic, and leave it at that. Agatha continues saying that the Scarlet Witch wasn't really born, but rather created, and doesn't have a coven and no need for incantation. Then it gets really dumb, because Agatha says that the Scarlet Witch's magic far exceeds everyone else, including the Sorcerer Supreme, which at this point in time is, of course, Doctor Strange, and this is why the MCU is now fully moving into the MCU. For those that haven't been paying attention, the people in charge at Disney and Marvel have essentially proclaimed that they want all the female characters to be better, stronger versions than the male counterparts. This is why Captain Marvel was made to be so much more ridiculously powerful than Thor, Iron Man, Thanos, and all the rest combined. But this is a problem now with Wanda and Doctor Strange, because Doctor Strange is easily one of the most powerful characters in all of Marvel. And that's not to say that the comic book version of Scarlet Witch is a slouch, because she's definitely strong too, but Doctor Strange is definitely more powerful. In fact, he had to be depowered several times in the comics because it was just ridiculous on the scale of things that he could do. So now in the MCU, Doctor Strange being more powerful than Wanda is simply not something that Disney is going to allow. They will not let any male character be stronger than the female equivalent. This is not some kind of theory on my part. The people in charge at Disney and Marvel have already expressed that this is their plan. What's even more dumb about this is that the next time we see Wanda, she will be in the Doctor Strange movie sequel. That means that Doctor Strange is going to end up playing second fiddle in his own movie.
I hate this. It is revolting.
Does this sound familiar? Because it should. It's the exact same thing that Pepper Potts did to Tony Stark in Iron Man 3. And it's the exact same thing that happened to Ant-Man in his sequel movie, where Wasp became more important than he was. And we know that in the next Thor movie, Jane Foster is going to be more important and the star of that movie as well. Are you seeing a fucking pattern here? It isn't rocket surgery. You have to be willfully ignorant in order to pretend that this show and the rest of the MCU is not going into man-hating, woke weirdo territory.
The truth shall set you free!
Agatha rambles on, saying that it's Wanda's destiny to destroy the world and that she was cruel for all the stuff that she did to the people in the town. Agatha uses her powers to release some of those people, who immediately begin begging Wanda to let them go free, or at least to see their loved ones. Unfortunately, we then go back to Rambo, where she's confronting fake Quicksilver, and somehow she manages to throw him to the ground, because apparently all of his super speed just happened to stop working.
It's very convenient.
Very convenient.
Even though there's no reason for it. I mean, the guy can literally dodge bullets, and he can move so fast that time essentially comes to a stop, but he wasn't able to avoid a clumsy takedown by Rambo. Yeah, okay.
Right.
She then notices that his necklace is glowing and pulls it off, which frees Ralph from Agatha's control. Confronted by people in the town, Wanda realizes that she has been hurting them and begins opening up parts of the energy field. She tells everyone to escape, and we do see people running away, but not a single one of them ever tries to actually leave the town. Instead, they just kind of run around in circles and then go back to their houses, which makes no sense. However, the opening in the barrier does give the director the opportunity to move his forces inside, and with the barrier being destroyed, Wanda sees Vision and the twins also being torn apart. She chooses to reseal the barrier so that she can save her family. However, even with the barrier closed, all of the Sword Agents and their vehicles don't get altered like they should, and they just remain normal, so I guess we're just kind of throwing that part of the story out the window, I guess, and that stuff no longer gets changed when it's inside the town. Whatever.
Am I the only one around here who gives a shit about the rules?
I mean, the buildings and everything else in the town is still being altered, including the people that are not in the immediate area who Agatha was able to free. Everyone else in the town is still under Wanda's control, but I guess because the plot needs it to happen, the Sword Agents and their vehicles just stay normal, I guess.
I'm not a writer, okay?
White Vision shows up again. Both Visions get knocked into a building and begin fighting. There's a little bit of action, but the way that this fight gets resolved is actually pretty interesting. White Vision says that it's his primary mission to destroy the real Vision, but the other one says that he is not the real Vision. He's just a recreation, which gives the White Vision pause, and the fight stops, and the two have kind of a philosophical discussion on what it means to be real. But We don't get that just yet. That's going to happen in another scene later in the episode. So outside, the Sword agents have now surrounded Wanda and the twins, and up until this point, the show has deliberately chosen to make almost every single one of the Sword agents something other than a white guy. We saw this with the Sword agents, we saw this with the people in their building, we saw this with the Air Force people that showed up, we saw this everywhere in the show. They always try to diversify the characters as much as they possibly can. In other words, they get rid of as many white guys as they can.
That's racist.
And yet, for all of these agents that are right here, right now, with guns that are pointed at Wanda and the twins, they're comprised almost entirely of white guys. There's one white woman there as well, but the rest are white guys. And anyone with even the slightest hint of skin pigmentation is nowhere to be found. And if you think that was accidental, then I have a bridge to sell you. Further proving that this was indeed the intention of the people making the show, Agatha even comments about it. She says that all throughout history, there will always be those with torches and pitchforks that come for women like them. It's so painfully obvious and nauseating.
That is an incredibly outmoded and sexist attitude.
But don't worry, it gets worse. The twins, using their powers, attack and disarm all of the agents, but the director steps out of his vehicle and he points his gun at the twins and fires. Rambo, seeing this, runs in the way to shield the twins. Take a look at this for a second. Exactly what was the director supposed to be shooting at? Because it's pretty obvious that he was shooting in between the two twins. Even if Rambo had not gotten in the way, none of those bullets would have actually connected. They would have just went into the ground. Let's ignore for the moment the absurd fact that this scene was set up in order to make Rambo look heroic. You're telling me that the director, who is a highly trained agent, isn't able to hit a target from only 20 feet away.
I started blasting. Bang! Bang!
Regardless, we find out that one of Rambo's new powers is that she's immune to bullets. They pass right through her and then just kind of drop to the ground. Although right now her eyes are glowing golden instead of the blue that it was before, so either she's getting stronger or maybe it's a different set of powers. Really, it doesn't matter because this character is terrible and nobody cares. So then the director just panics for whatever unknown reason. I mean, I guess he's scared that, I don't know, like he's scared that he's out of ammo or something. And then he just jumps into his vehicle and attempts to escape. But before he gets away, Clown Girl finally arrives and slams her vehicle into his. And then she says, "Have fun in prison," which again makes absolutely no sense because there is nothing that the director has done that would be considered a crime. Even when he was just now trying to hit the twins, remember, they had used superpowers to attack his agents. They were the ones that were aggressive at that point. They posed a very real and deadly threat to the other agents because of their superpowers. The director was defending his men from beings using superpowers. That's not a crime. It doesn't matter what they look like, nor does any of the other stuff that he did with Vision or with the operation as a whole. Nothing that he has done is a crime. The show is making him into a villain just because he's a white man in a position of authority, and that's it.
That don't make no sense.
Let's ignore that garbage for a second, because now we get back into the scene with both of the Visions. They have since stopped fighting and are now talking to each other. The one from inside the barrier brings up the thought experiment called the Ship of Theseus. This is another similar version of my grandfather's axe. Essentially, the argument is that if you take an object and you replace pieces of that object over time until eventually none of the original parts remain, is that object the same thing? So with the ships, you're replacing the planks and all the other pieces of it. With the axe, you replace the head and then the handle. But once you've replaced all the pieces, is it actually your grandfather's axe anymore? Is it actually the Ship of Theseus anymore? or is it something that you have built? It's then argued that neither one of the visions is the original, as they both lack something. The white Vision doesn't have the Mind Stone or the memories anymore, and the other version of Vision lacks any kind of physical parts from the original. He is simply a creation of Wanda. The Vision from inside the barrier offers to use his powers and the remnant of the Mind Stone to rekindle the memories within the white Vision. He says that while they may not be available at this time, that because the Vision body was so durable and made of vibranium and this and that at least some part of them should still exist, and he might be able to reactivate them. He tries, he uses his powers, and the white Vision is able to regain all of the memories up until the moment that he was destroyed by Thanos. And then the white Vision makes the statement, "I am Vision," assuming the role of the actual Vision character and that he is the true thing. And then he immediately fucks off into the sky, never to be seen again. I am not even kidding. What in the hell is going on here? White Vision regains all of his memories, which include his feelings and love for Wanda, who is literally 50 feet away outside the building, but instead of going outside to speak with her and to help her because she's under attack by Sword and by Agatha, instead of going to help her, he just flies away, and we don't see him for the rest of the episode.
This is terrible.
Meanwhile, Wanda manages to sneak up on Agatha and is able to move her into a sort of mind realm. This is similar to what she did to Tony Stark in the Age of Ultron, where she made him see his fears. She's doing the same thing to Agatha. And now Agatha is back in Salem, where she was when she was about to be executed by the other witches. Wanda brings back the other witches to life, just in the mind realm, and she's going to use them to attack Agatha, but even in this fake realm, those dead witches are able to recognize that Wanda is the Scarlet Witch, and instead of attacking Agatha, they attack her. Wanda is able to break free, and then she and Agatha end up flying off and having a big battle in the sky. Wanda starts throwing energy all around, and it looks like she's losing as Agatha keeps absorbing more and more of Wanda's power, but what Wanda is actually doing is setting up a gigantic set of warding runes in the energy barrier itself that's surrounding the town. This turns the entire town into a location where only Wanda is able to use magic, similar to what happened in Agatha's house. Agatha realizes that her powers are gone and she can't cast any magic, but you might have noticed something is a little bit wrong with all this, because Agatha, even though she can't cast magic, she is still using magic in order to fly. So these giant powerful warding runes can stop Agatha from casting any kind of magic, except for magic that will allow her to fly and not go splat into the ground.
Danny kind of forgot it.
This is another one of those situations where I couldn't help but think, wow, this is really stupid. Again, the show is trying to set up a situation because they want a specific payoff, and in this case, it's the realization that Agatha is now trapped and she can't use any magic, blah, 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 but she can still use magic to fly. As soon as those runes took effect, Agatha should have plummeted into the ground like a meteor.
I've fallen, and I can't get up!
Wanda then reveals the new version of her comic book outfit and accepting the role of the Scarlet Witch. This is the vision that she saw when she first came into contact with the Mind Stone, and again, I need to point out that the Mind Stone does not have the ability to tell the future, so that whole premise was stupid as well. Agatha then accuses Wanda of being cruel and that she will cause great destruction. So rather than, doing the right thing, Wanda then promptly proves Agatha is right by placing her under a spell that condemns her to live trapped in the town for the rest of her life and under the mind control of Wanda forever as a cruel fate. Agatha is not exactly a hero, but she absolutely is correct in pointing out that what Wanda was doing to all the people in the town was both cruel and wrong. Wanda does eventually decide to tear down the barrier so the rest of the people in the town are able to return to normal, but we see that all of those people are still extremely traumatized from their experience. But when Wanda goes to talk to Rambo, of course, Rambo, instead of treating Wanda as someone who has done something that is very clearly wrong, Rambo then heaps praise upon Wanda, talking about how awesome she is and how she's such an amazing hero and that They will never understand all of the sacrifices that you made for them.
They'll never know what you sacrificed for them.
Just let us die.
Heroes don't torture people.
Just let us die.
You know how much I sacrifice?
So rather than being brought to justice for the crimes that she has done, this monumentally stupid idiot Rambeau is treating Wanda as if she is some sort of miraculous hero because she stopped torturing the people that live in the town. Wanda spent the last several weeks or month or longer, however long it was, essentially torturing every single person in this town. She had absolute control over all of them, their minds, their body. They had no free will whatsoever, but despite the fact that they lived in absolute agony and terror, never knowing if they were going to be free or if they could see their loved ones ever again, probably being traumatized for the rest of their entire life, because Wanda stopped doing that, she is a hero again. Because she stopped torturing people. That's not how it works. This show is stupid, and Monica Rambeau is a fucking moron.
It is a tale told by an idiot.
So then, seemingly absolved of all of her heinous crimes by the captain of the diversity squad, Wanda just flies into the sky and fucks off like Vision did.
All of this is disgusting and terrible.
I can't help but notice how hilariously absurd it is that Wanda is once again being treated as a hero despite what she's done, whereas the director is treated like this incredibly evil villain for no reason other than the fact that he's a white male. It's fucking absurd.
Great job, Morty. A feminist masterpiece.
That's where the main part of the show ends, but we get a little bit more during the credits. In the mid-credit scene, Rambeau goes into a building and is greeted by one of the Skrulls, who says that Rambeau is now gonna get taken into space. But she's an awful character and nobody cares, so moving on. We get another end credit scene at the very end, where Wanda is now living in isolation, and it's revealed that she is using some of the same techniques that Doctor Strange is able to. Normal Wanda is just kind of walking around and carrying out her day, but the Scarlet Witch Wanda is in an astral plane, reading the Darkhold, learning the forbidden magic. The Scarlet Witch then hears cries for help from her twins from somewhere else in the void, and we can see anger move across her face. Wandavision is not a good show for a bunch of reasons, but the three main ones are the fact that, first, excessive use of gimmicky sitcom nonsense. It would have been fine for 1 or 2 episodes, carry it on as long as it was. It was just a joke that got dragged on well beyond the point where it was funny. The second thing is the sheer amount of filler in these episodes. Disney wants you to stay subscribed to their streaming service, and the more that they stretch the season, the longer they can keep people subscribed. This entire season could have been done in 5 or 6 episodes instead of being stretched out to 9. And the third reason is because of all the woke, man-hating garbage. There's a big difference from having a character who has prejudices and negative points of view for certain kinds of people versus the actual show creators having those negative views and putting them into the show. You expect a character to behave like that character would, and there are good and bad aspects of being a human. However, it is extremely clear that Disney and Marvel are trying to make these shows, and the MCU in general, cast a negative view on certain types of people in the real world for no reason other than their physical characteristics, and it's the current year woke thing to do. Consider for a moment if they had done the same type of strategy for characters that look like Rambeau or Jimmy. Then this would be considered unacceptable and hateful, as it rightly would have been. But when they do it for characters that look like the director, well then that's the good kind of hatred. But in reality, it's equally unacceptable and abhorrent. The Wandavision series was supposed to directly lead into the Doctor Strange movie, but because of everything that happened last year, the movie has been delayed until 2022. So instead, the next thing that we're going to expect to see in the MCU is Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I fully expect that show to have just as much, if not more, woke garbage, except for that show, it will likely not focus on hatred based on gender, but rather hatred based on race, and once again, the characters that look like the director are going to be the targets of that. And for those that would accept that fact and yet continue to pay for Disney Plus, I would only have to say, stop giving money to people that hate you. And with that, it's the end of Season 1 of WandaVision.